Welcome back to the Angus Report. I'm Crystal Albers, and joining me today in the studio is Dr. Dan Moser of Angus Genetics Incorporated and Dr. Kent Andersen of Zoetis. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today we're talking about the cattle industry and how so much of it's changing with the introduction of genomic testing. Dan, let's start with you. Tell us about how genetic testing is really changing the way that the market values cattle.
Sure, Crystal. For decades, we've been marketing fed cattle on a true value-based grid where we provide incentives for higher quality grade, yield grade, and those sort of things. But that's been a real challenge in the feeder cattle segment of our business. That traditionally feeder cattle have been marketed pretty much on weight, color, and seller reputation. But there's been no opportunity to really document the genetic differences that will have huge implications for profitability and carcass merit. Genomic testing now allows us, commercial producers, to test the replacement heifers and then use the average value of those heifer test results to market the steer calves.
Okay, and so with that information, armed with some of that information, how are producers conveying that to the marketplace?
Crystal, I think it all starts with tagging the animals and enrolling them in programs such as Angus Source and other feeder cattle marketing opportunities. Typically the way that would happen then, the sale information about the cattle would be included, and relative to Angus Source would be pushed out to over 700 feed yards and order buyers, as well as a listing of the calves and the genetic information that Dan mentioned would be available on the website to help improve price discovery for the calves.
And so they're armed with all of this information. Is the feeding sector ready to differentiate that value?
Crystal, I think the answer to that is both yes and no. Health programs such as SelectVac now are widely recognized, and it's well documented that cattle that have had all their vaccinations and that we have some history on relative to management bring more dollars at the time of feeder cattle sale. We're really early in this new paradigm of more advanced genetic information inserted at the time of price discovery. And many of the bigger feed yards sure know about it and are starting to look for it. But I think there's still work to be done to help folks understand what opportunities this new genetic information offers.
Yeah, Crystal, as part of the association's long-range strategic plan, two of the goals that we've set are to raise the visibility of the Angus Source program and make both buyers and potential commercial producers more aware of the opportunities there, and also to engage more fully with the fed cattle segment of the industry so that they better understand the language that we use to describe genetics, and so they can better understand our tools and take advantage of those.
And Angus Source has really been a trailblazer because for years they've included EPD and index information about the bull battery for sets of calves, and recently GeneMax Advantage and Focus information for sets of calves. So that's very aligned with the long-range plan.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's a good segue too into my next question, which is, what you see. Kent mentioned we're in the early stages of this information changing the way that maybe people market their cattle. What do you see long term for genomic testing in the commercial cattle industry?
Well, I think, Crystal, that the opportunity certainly to document the genetics of feeder cattle will continue to grow, that I think more buyers will look for and really expect that information and be more willing to make the investment on those cattle if they have some genetic documentation in addition to the health and other things that they're used to getting. I think also for commercial cow-calf producers, using that selection information from a genomic test like GeneMax Advantage or GeneMax Focus when they pick their replacement heifers helps them keep moving their herd forward along with proper sire selection. But they risk falling behind when their competing producers are using that information. We're raising the average genetic value of these cattle every day, and so these tools really help commercial producers keep up and move up in the overall cattle population.
Long term, what are the implications if people don't test their cattle, essentially?
In the future, I would submit that we're probably going to see a marketplace where you have some animals that have all the information front-loaded, and that will be factored into the price they get. And then other animals without such information will be more commodity and tend to trade towards the average because of unknown genetic merit for feedlot and carcass.
I think, Crystal, in the end, that really all segments of the industry benefit from this. The cow-calf producer has a higher quality genetics to sell, and they'll be rewarded for that in the marketplace. The cattle feeder really has less risk involved because they know the most likely outcome of those cattle, how they'll perform, how they'll grade, and they can manage them accordingly and reduce their risk. And then ultimately, of course, the consumer benefits because the quality of beef as well as the production efficiency is improved by this sort of technology.
All right, well, wonderful. You've given us a lot to think about. That's all the time we have today. If you'd like to learn more, visit the website, as Kent mentioned. We'll return with the Angus Report after this.
My name is Jim Collins with Collins Farms here in Casita, Alabama. We've been in the business for 70 years and focus on making functional commercial Angus females and balanced trait Angus bulls that we market across the Southeast. While we're predominantly a commercial herd, we run 350 commercial cows and 60 to 75 purebred cows. We were very interested when we first heard that G-Max was coming to the market for commercial animals, and we started with G-Max Focus. We've been using the G-Max Advantage ever since it was launched. We've used the HD50K and I50K products on the purebred side of it. Currently, all of our purebred animals are I50K tested, and then all of our commercial heifers are G-Max Advantage tested. And we'll probably now go back and do G-Max Advantage on the rest of our older mature cows so that I'll have that full pool of results on our entire commercial herd.
Learn more at genemaxadvantage.com.